We are back with our podcast. Hello, Whitney.
Hey.
How was your weekend?
This was a great weekend. We are having our floor time, which we'll get to later in the podcast.
We're still on the floor. We don't have chairs yet.
We're back on the floor. We love the floor. It's a nice place to be. But we had community workout at Sunmade Fitness this morning, which was epic. We got a couple of bikes for Jack the Bike Man. Mm-hmm. Hannah, talk about his company really quick.
Yeah, so Jack the Bike Man is in West Palm Beach, and it's a charity, it's nonprofit, and they just collect used and new bikes for families in need and people that otherwise might not be able to get one. So we did a little bike fundraiser workout this morning at Sunmade and had a few bikes for Alex to take back. Yeah. And this was for the warehouse fire that they had last week. So
yeah,
just wanted to do a little something for the community at the community workout.
I didn't even know that you could, I knew you could obviously donate bikes to like Salvation Army, I think. Well, they might even have restrictions on what they can take, but he will take pretty much a junker. He'll take something with the chain falling off or flat tires and is able to
like
repair.
Like the bike I got from Walmart today.
Yes.
Oh, no.
So I thought that was just a cool thing. And then he also, like Hannah was saying, he works with different programs around the community that could gift bikes or that need bikes for young kids or adults who don't have access or funds to get themselves something like a bike to go enjoy the outside and get exercise with. So it was right up our alley to participate with.
If you have a bike that you would like to donate, then check out Jack the Bike Man. They will come pick your bike up for you. You don't have to go to them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Welcome to Beyond the Reps, where we talk about all things your physical therapist and trainer forgot to tell you. I'm one of your hosts, Whitney Stevenson. I am a gym owner, a celebrity trainer, and a personal training coach.
And I'm Dr. Hannah Shays, your co-host. I'm a physical therapist and practice owner. So today we are going to talk about what we believe to be the foundational pillars of our health. There's a lot of different things that can go into a healthy routine, right? But I think we have managed to cut through all of the noise and designate 5 as our foundational pillars. So the pillars that we have selected include, in no particular order, nutrition, hydration, sleep, movement, and stress management. Whitney,
yeah. We're going to drum roll for those 5.
Why do you think it's important for us to touch on these pillars today?
Oh, man. There are so many reasons why. I think right now there is more information than ever that is out there about health, wellness, fitness, what you could be doing, what you should be doing, what's going to kill you, what's not going to kill you, what's going to make you live longer, longevity. There's so much information, and it can be a little bit of a tough sea to navigate sometimes. For me, fitness is a tool that I use to improve the level of my clients' health, the level of my own health. It's a tool that you can use, to improve your life physically, mentally, spiritually. It allows you to work on the relationship you have with yourself. So it's a great tool for developing, that relationship, and that's what's going to take you through basically the rest of your life, like you and your body. So I think it is a really important idea to invest and work on that relationship and work on your health and overall wellness and live a longer life, which not just a longer life sitting in a chair at a home, but a longer life
over quantity.
Yeah, a longer life that has quality. That means that you're living independently, that you have a capable body. So it's important, right? It's paramount that, we have these, or we dive into these things that could basically improve our health and wellness and live a longer, healthier, more capable life. And to embark on this health, wellness, fitness journey, we can imagine it being a road, and the road being like on the way to a better version of yourself is held up by a bridge, and that bridge has 5 posts. And, the 5 posts are these pillars that we were just saying. So just a quick summary of those 5, again, that Hannah just mentioned. We have, in a quantitative kind of look at them, 8 hours of good quality sleep. That's one of your posts or your pillars. We have 30 to 60 minutes of daily movement or sweat. That's another pillar. We have, daily peeing, a minimum of half of your body weight in ounces water hydration. That's a pillar. We have 3 nutritional meals a day, ideally whole foods, taking daily poops. That's another pillar. And then we have stress management and connection with yourself, with nature, with others. That would be our 5th pillar. So basically, we kind of came up with these as a way to give a little bit of clarity to people who might be struggling with, wow, there is so much information out here. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I need to wear blue blockers. I don't know if I need to cold plunge 5 times a day. I don't know if I need to wear castor oil packs on my eyeballs before I go to sleep. Like, we're trying to kind of triage the information and give at least some clarity, for your own health, wellness, and fitness. And it also comes down to being radically honest with yourself about what are you actually doing? Are you kind of putting the cart before the horse and wearing blue light blockers all day long, but getting 2 hours of sleep?
Or getting a glutathione shot in your butt.
Yeah. And
not eating healthy.
There can be benefit to, those deeper aspects. But that kind of comes with time, right? So we want to master the basics. We want to master these 5 basic things that are kind of the low-hanging fruit of like health, wellness, fitness, longevity. Once we master them, then you can kind of deepen your practice, right? So this is kind of a principle that I was using, and that I still use as a coach, but was kind of, I was taught as I was learning weightlifting. Every time that I felt like I was at a plateau and not getting any better, I always went back to the basics. I always went back to kind of moving weight that was super light, or just using the PVC pipe and working on my correct movement, mastering the basics, and then kind of being able to take that mastering and apply it to heavier weight or a more advanced movement or a deeper skill. So I think that's just such a principle in life, is like, hey, like, don't get too caught up in this thing that's way out here. Dial it back and make sure that you're really doing these, closer things to you, and like maybe they're easier things to do or not as sexy to do, but they're actually going to lead you to a bigger, better result in the long run. And that's what we believe these 5 kind of principles are. Start hammering these consistently, and then you can kind of deepen or build upon that.
You talking about moving with the PVC pipe before you move with a heavy weight was music to my ears. I'm so proud of you.
So proud.
Get some good movement
Yeah.
first. So you can also imagine a pizza or a salad with what Whitney just said. The base is the foundational pillars that we believe you need to have down before adding the extravagant toppings, which would be biohacking, supplementation, IV drips, because you can't out-supplement an unhealthy lifestyle. So just getting the sauce and the cheese on the dough before throwing on bacon and chives and if you're one of those pineapple and ham people, So let's kick off our pillars with the pillar of nutrition.
Woo!
Unfortunately, in physical therapy school, and I know in medical school too, there's almost no education on nutrition. They literally tell us in school, you need to educate these patients on living a healthy lifestyle.
I cannot believe that.
No smoking, eat healthy, but they don't tell you how to do that. They just tell you to do it. And I think most clinicians reference the American Heart Society, the American Cancer Society, just those websites that have kind of generic health, information. And so everything that I personally have learned about nutrition and supplementation has been after graduating from physical therapy school. It's been on my own out of pure love for the topic. So Whitney, walk me through your thoughts on nutrition as a pillar.
Absolutely. I honestly cannot believe that they just throw you to the wind like that. Like, teach somebody how to be healthy, and we're not going to tell you how to do it.
We have
Figure it out.
We have Google for that, right?
Figure it out. But that just speaks to it. Nutrition is a very complicated subject. It is complex, and I do believe that is why so many people struggle with a food routine that actually has like a meaningful impact on their life, is because it is complicated. Most people that I work with, they tend to have habits around food that lead them to eating very little. They don't necessarily overconsume, and they were kind of yo-yoing with themselves through the week. So for me, if I'm working with somebody like that, I really guide them to aim for 3 meals a day that are all protein forward, which what I mean by that is prioritizing protein above carbs and fats within those meals. So that's kind of like you're making sure breakfast, lunch, and dinner that you got a protein in. And That's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but it can be a basic thing to do that can start to help you switch up your relationship and switch up what you're choosing for your food. I also encourage a whole foods. So basically eating food that comes from the earth and minimizing your, digestion of processed foods. So as far as this goes, this looks like eating foods that are grown from the earth, like plants, animals, that don't necessarily come in a box. Fruit is great. Vegetables are great. And you can get those that are frozen. It doesn't need to be something that's, oh, I have to get organic or I have to get only this. It's, we need to start somewhere. We can't go, again, layers into the toppings. We just want to get a baseline going. So another thing that can kind of give you a guide is, check in the toilet. I didn't realize that your body gives you signals all the time about basically what's going on. Like, hey, I'm doing well. Hey, I'm not doing so good. Just listen to me. And one of those signals could be your bowel movement. So they're going to give you great insight to whether or not the food that you're eating is bothering you and your systems or it's not. So I suggest to check in with the toilet every now and again and just make sure healthy bowel movements are happening. Do you know what a healthy bowel movement looks like, Hannah?
People probably don't want to hear this, but it's supposed to look like a snake. So if you just Google, I think you can pretty much search, I think you could just look up the poop scale basically, and there's maybe 6 levels, and one is you're not having enough water, you're eating something that's irritating to you, so it's more on the mildly constipated side, and then I think 3 or 4 is perfect, where it's like more of like a log.
A log. Yeah, a log.
Welcome to our poopcast, everyone.
It's a poopcast.
And then after that is when you get into the more inflammatory range where it's looser to liquid. And so if you're having more of that end of what I described, then it's something with your system is screaming at you and it wants your attention.
Yeah. And that could be food, and it also could be stress. We could get super nuancy here, but the main point is kind of using that check-in with the toilet to make sure that you're having like a healthy bowel movement, and healthy can kind of be a range. And you can take time into consideration and frequency into consideration as well. So this is just a tool. So mainly 3 big meals a day that are protein forward. I coach that. That's what I recommend. And your food intake being mainly from whole foods, minimally processed foods, and healthy bowel movements are happening daily.
And when you say protein forward, can you kind of quantify that for me a little bit? Like a rough baseline for how much protein the average active person should have each day? Not sedentary, but maybe someone like me, I lift 3-ish days a week. I'm not trying to really hypertrophy. I just want to maintain because I'm in my 30s, and after 40, women start to lose muscle mass. So I want to kind of get as much of a good groundwork as I can. I jog 1 to 2 days a week. Nothing crazy.
I mean, also, disclaimer, I'm not a nutritionist. We're going to dive deeper into this podcast and the nutrition subject with a nutritionist. But from the many that I have worked with, basically, you want to also figure out what that person is starting with. They may not know at all how much protein they're having. Like, they may not even be able to tell you, well, I have 5 grams of protein. I don't know. They may not have any clue. So to get a gauge of what the person is kind of doing comfortably, if you just want to give them a flat out number, I would just start with like 75% of their body weight. You ideally want to be probably closer to 100% or even upwards of 125% of your body weight in grams of protein a day. For women, that would be ideal, especially over 40 if you can get to that 125%. But protein is a hard thing to consume and digest and absorb nutrient from, so it's going to agitate your gut. So if they're not eating that much protein and you just dump 125% of their body weight in grams of protein on them, they're probably not going to have a great reaction. So you really need to figure out kind of where they're at. So starting back at 75 and being able to build up from that percentage, I think is like a really safe and good place to start. And protein is also kind of inconvenient to eat, right? It's already to even have on hand. It's like it needs to be cooked usually, or it needs to be refrigerated. We don't always have access to that. So I always try to suggest people to figure out tips and tricks that they can do throughout their day to just build in a little bit more protein, whether that's adding, some collagen into their coffee in the morning, or having a Greek yogurt on, individually packaged that they could have on hand or they could bring with them to work, or finding a supplementation of protein that doesn't agitate their stomach that they can have with them. But aside from that, prioritizing protein in your 3 big meals is going to be the best way to hit an ideal number. Like, for example, I don't even track my protein anymore. I just make sure I get 3 meals that have protein in it, and that I also have a recovery shake after I train.
Yeah.
That has protein and carbs.
Yeah. So for me, if you're going to do about 75% of my body weight, then I need I think when I did the calculator the other day, we talked about it was 105 grams a day for me, which is crazy because I think a few years ago when we were learning about this in school, kind of a little bit, it was, I think a minimum everyone needs 60, and that is really not enough. I think there's a lot more research on that now, and so I need to almost double it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. I think that, women in general struggle with protein because it's been almost that stigma of you need to eat less, you need to be less, and we don't understand that this is actually a nutrient that our body needs, and it's vital for sustaining muscle mass on our body longer as we age.
Yeah, so I got pretty interested in the nutrition world from more of a food as medicine perspective. I was personally experiencing skin and eye inflammation in 2021, and none of the ophthalmologists or dermatologists could figure out what was wrong. So I had to do the digging myself, and I found out that it wasn't a surface problem with my skin. So all the antibiotics and steroid drops weren't really doing anything.
And they were probably making things worse, actually.
Actually, yeah, I did react to the steroid eye drops a little bit, and turns out it was an internal problem with my gut health. Yeah. So
if you're taking antibiotics too, that's gonna...
Well, they were drops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I won't go down the gut health rabbit hole because that is a big rabbit hole. But all that is to say, this experience completely showed me that what we put in our bodies really does matter, and it impacts all of our systems.
Yeah.
So when I talk to my patients about nutrition in general, I always come from a lens of minimizing inflammation where we can. So for you listeners, I'll just list some symptoms of inflammation. There's probably more than what I'm going to list, but it might be skin irritation, which could be rashes, bumps, headaches, a runny nose, and coughing around eating, while eating or right after eating the food, irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, loose stools, gas and bloating, brain fog, poor sleep, and dry eye, which is what I actually was experiencing with all of that, the eye inflammation. And I'm sure there's more on that list, but if any of that sounds like you within the first 3 hours after consuming food, then there's likely something in your diet that is irritating your system.
Yeah, I think it's really undervalued how many times our body talks to us and gives us signals. We're taught to ignore it. We're taught to ignore it.
We're just busy on our phones,
grind through
working.
it. We're both, I'm sure, guilty of this, but it is amazing that the human body can give you, this vessel that we're in on this earth can give us so many signals of what is going on, what is working, what isn't working, and then having an understanding of what are the signals of a healthy, now I have something to contrast and compare what's going on with my body to. And again, nothing is like a perfect fit or a perfect mold, but to kind of know the spectrum of, okay, healthy bowel movements, I'm eating this way, I'm working on these things, this is where I can get closer to that really idyllic, nutritional lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, the body will tell you every morning, if you're having daily bowel movements, if you're doing how it's doing, if it's upset with you, if something's wrong. And I didn't know how to listen to my own body till I said 2021. I was 27 years old. That's a long time to not know, what's going on with you and your environment. When I am talking to my patients about kind of the general diet and inflammation, my recommendation is, generally to gravitate towards, like you said, whole foods and minimize pre-prepared meals in the store or out, because just there's inflammatory oils and other additives that can cause irritation. You don't necessarily even know what that would be because there's so many things that could be added. The nutrition world can feel complex and definitely become a rabbit hole, like we said. So I usually just reference, look at the Mediterranean diet, look at the paleo diet, look at the Whole30 diet. They're just introductory points to what eating air quotes, healthy can look like. So generally speaking, I feel like I can offer a good amount of insight into nutrition and diet for patients that want some education, and I can read and interpret lab values. But my job isn't to treat conditions related to diet and gut health.
Yeah.
It's to understand enough to educate my patients and know how and when to refer out for dietetic consults.
Yeah, I agree, because when I work with clients and they have questions about nutrition, and, you know, I did not go to school for that, right? I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a registered dietitian. And most of what I can speak to really is more of the lifestyle stuff around what they're doing, and like just bringing awareness to those things. Like, are you chewing your food? Are you, healthy bowel movements? Are you, like taking a moment to breathe? Are you cooking your food at home? Do you even have the tools and things to cook your food at home? So there's a lot of stuff that, as a coach, I can provide a lot of insight to, but I can't give that, real prescriptive type of registered dietitian, follow this, these are the things that you need to do. I'm hoping that you maybe found someone.
I know, I've been looking really hard, and you did connect me with someone good. Her expertise was more in the addiction and addiction realm than the sports, even functional medicine realm. But I did find someone who I think is going to be really good through a client. So I'm excited to say that I might have that person now.
Okay, cool. Let's have them on the show so we can talk deeper about this subject.
Ask her.
Yeah, I mean, nutrition, is so essential. But like we said, to kind of just keep it simple and keep it tangible for people that are just starting out on their health journey. It does not need to be complicated to be healthy. That's the thing. It can be complicated, to maximize and get really deep into what is going on in your body. But to start out and step away from maybe a toxic or an unhealthy relationship with food, it does not need to be complicated. And that's the main thing. Mm-hmm. So I too have worked with a lot of functional medicine doctors and nutritionists, especially when I was competing. So learning about food and learning about gut health is incredibly individually based. And it's not just affected by like what food I was eating or what food you're eating, but it's also affected by stress, which I didn't even realize at the time. I didn't know that digestion was even stress. So stress and stress management is super, super, super important. And it's just funny how these like pillars can kind of domino into each other. So they're all a catalyst to create, a healthier body and a healthier mind. So nutrition is a source of, self-nourishment. What are you doing to really nourish your being, who you are? What is in your vessel? Digestion is technically, like I said, a form of stress on the body. Your body has to work to break down the food and absorb nutrients to create energy for your body. So stress here can have like a positive and a negative effect on the body. So, and that's something we have to look at. We really need to kind of understand stress as like a good thing for adaptation, but also if it's a chronic thing, it's not so good anymore. Mm-hmm.
And I like this for our next pillar, your intro to stress.
Yes.
So when I talk about stress, I like to give people the image of the stress bucket. You know what the stress bucket is?
Let's go. Let's do it. What's the stress bucket?
Okay, so the stress bucket is something that we all have, and it's just constantly collecting various stressors. It's both good and bad stress. So we know what bad stress is. It might seem obvious, but there's some non-obvious bad stress that we're collecting too. So non-mental stressors, chemicals in the environment, poor sleep, low quality diet, infection, illness, etc. And it collects good stress. So a hard workout, welcoming a new family member like a baby or a new pet, buying a new house. All of those are exciting things, but they're pretty freaking stressful, right? Yeah. So you get the idea, and our stress bucket is always gathering these accumulated stressors.
Are buckets different sizes? Like, is my stress bucket the size of a wheelbarrow?
That is a good question. That's probably a good niche question. I bet you, for all intents and purposes, let's assume they're just this one size.
We're doing a one-size-fits-all stress bucket, but so probably it is different sizes for different people.
They're filling with stressors, and what we want to avoid is this theoretical bucket overflowing, because that's when we run into problems with burnout, illness, inflammation, especially autoimmunity flares. So someone who has an autoimmune disease, they're not always in the flare. They can go into remission, but then they come back into it and they go into remission. And I usually would like to think that is the stress bucket is getting out of control and it needs to be dumped a little bit. So depending on your environment, avoiding some of these stressors can be difficult, but this can be where implementing an effective stress management routine can be helpful. So stress management techniques can help keep the bucket from overflowing. And personally, my go-to stress management techniques are acupuncture, jogging, and yin yoga. Everyone's going to have a different technique that they resonate with.
Have you been doing yin?
Yeah, I've been going to yin every Wednesday.
Good job.
I need it. Some people hate yin. They think it's so boring. And so if you hate yin and it's boring,
that might stress you out, right? So you want to do something that's actually going to de-stress you and not make you more aggravated from doing it. That's funny.
Yeah. So what are your go-tos?
Oh man, I have a few. Before I really dive into what works for me and my stress management, which I am a constant work in progress on. I am no queen of managing my own stress. I am always going to be learning and trying to read the signals from my body. So, but I want to get into some context about stress again and how it can show up so differently for us. Maybe our buckets are different size. Like,
your wheelbarrow.
My wheelbarrow and somebody else has a thimble is their, stress bucket.
Yeah, I'm sure trauma.
I think a lot of things, environmental, can affect that. So I want to talk about a client that I was previously coaching. And at the time I was wearing a Whoop, which is basically, a wearable that would show you your heart rate data. And because I had one and my clients had one, I could see their data. And so I had a client who really had no resting heart rate. Like her heart rate was so high all the time, even when she was just sitting. And I was like, yo, what is going on? So I kind of started asking her more questions about her job and how her job was affecting her. She was a 911 dispatcher. And so she picks up the phone all day long and is basically listening to people panic about, somebody, a horrible accident, basically. So when she was resting, sitting at work, her heart rate is up because she's thinking, she's high stress. She's trying to coordinate a call. She's trying to calm somebody down. She's trying to call the fire department or police over to whatever the thing is happening. So I would try to take this woman through maybe something similar to like a CrossFit workout, high heart rate, high intensity. And she was getting chronic pain. She was getting, symptoms of basically almost gout, chronic inflammation. And I was noticing this trend within her heart rate never actually resting. And I went, there is too much stress in this woman's life. I cannot stress her out more in the gym. We need to dial it back. So I intuitively switched her over to a more bodybuilding type of a training session where we would do functional bodybuilding and we'd walk. And that was it. And her chronic inflammation went down, her pain, her, symptoms of having gout minimized. And it just kind of opened my eyes to, wow, stress is so different. Even working out can be a form of stress when other things in your life are so high, your stress is so high outside of the gym. You kind of need that to match. You can't kind of dump in one area and get a total adrenaline load and a cortisol spike and then have no place or space in your life afterwards for it to calm down, because it doesn't, because you go right into work and heart rate's up, brain is ticking, panic is on. So that would just kind of really open my eyes to how important stress management is, let alone a whole different conversation about my dad having a heart attack and him dealing with stress management. So it is very, very, very important as far as health goes, as longevity goes. And one of the things that I really believe in is that having a connection with yourself as well as having a connection with nature and other people, it's extremely valuable. One of the podcasts I just listened to, it was shared on there that basically they say who you pick for your life partner has the number one effect on your health. Positive or negative.
You hear that, Sam? Don't kill me.
Don't kill her. So it's, who you are surrounding with and being influenced by can directly affect your health. So it is so important to have these relationships. Don't go, solitary confinement. That's not where we want to go with this. That's the number one form of prison. We don't want to not interact with people, but we want to interact with people and have relationships that are really going to like buoy each other up. They're going to be nurturing connections, inspiring relationships, and also connections and relationships that make you feel safe. Also the connection with yourself and a deep understanding of like who you are, and who exists kind of like underneath the noise and the thoughts is really important. And it might never be a perfect understanding, but at least, you know, an attempt to connect with that is very important. And for me, I really love connecting with myself that way in nature. So having my feet in the sand, taking a walk in the park, paddling at the Intercoastal, or paddling on the beach, or, you know, walking on the beach, or even just walking to my mailbox at sunset and taking a moment and being like, oh, it's so pretty. I love these moments. They really feel like that I can connect with something that's not a screen or a phone. And it really is a moment of my day that I really get a nice reset. And I know that it's really good for me. If it's good for my brain and my spirit, it's 100% going to be good for my body. So, and recently I've just started kind of doing this probably within the last year, is that after I work out, or after I'm like sitting in my car driving home, I like to say thank you to my body.
Some gratitude.
Just like, hey, thank you. Like, thank you for getting me through this really tough work day with 7 clients back to back. Or, hey, thank you for getting through that workout that I did not want to do, and then I ended up doing it and I did great, and now I feel good and accomplished. And I know I did something good for my body. And thank you for getting me there. Thank you for being healthy and capable. And I really want to like kind of harp on this, because I don't think that we say thank you to our vessel, our body, enough. We kind of like to use and abuse and get right to the next one and grind through without giving it proper thank you. So I also think slowing down in general is a good way to connect with yourself and maybe have those moments of gratitude or say thank you. So I've used yoga. I have like a non-negotiable 1 time a week with myself to go to yoga, and is another way for me to slow down and say thank you and just connect with myself and to my body, my mind, and my spirit, and just kind of like use that time on the mat as a way to, you know, reconnect.
Well, I want to piggyback off of your nature recommendation to tell our listeners that there are actually some practitioners who will literally prescribe cloud gazing as treatment.
I love this so much.
Go lay under a tree in the grass and gaze at the clouds. But I think it's meant to be more of a mindfulness practice than literally like go do this thing. I think it's just more mindfulness. But just the idea of laying down and staring at the clouds sounds completely counterintuitive in American society today. And I actually did it a few weeks ago while I was paddling, and
it's amazing.
It was very nice.
Yeah. It also, I love that it is a mindfulness practice, because I think mindfulness is more of admitting or understanding there's this category of things that you know, and then there's like what you don't know, you don't know. You know, like I didn't know that I didn't know that. Like I didn't even know that that existed.
You forgot because the last time you did it, you were 5.
Yeah, or you just didn't even know it, because we only know this much. We have things that we know, things that we don't know, and then we have this whole rest of these things that we don't know that we don't even know. Which I think when you look
You're giving me anxiety.
But I think when you look at the clouds, you have a moment of wow, there is just vastness, you know, there's like, and you can be creative, you can like flex your imagination muscle, you can kind of lubricate your brain a little bit with, you know, creating, you know, Snoopy out of the clouds, or, you know, finding a picture of someone there, you know, imagining, you know, having that like childlike wonder again. I think that is like so cool and so important. And I think a part of being healthy and having longevity or living longer is continuing that like childlike wonder for things that are on this planet, you know?
So stop looking at your phone and go look at a cloud.
My doctor said so.
Anyways, on to our next pillar, which is hydration. So for when it comes to drinking water, you really just want to make sure that you're hitting your daily intake needs.
I have to take a sip now because
take a sip.
Because you're talking about drinking water.
I have your Mineragua and then just normal water right now. So it's drinking half of your body weight in ounces of water a day. And this is without caffeine, without alcohol. So if you do have coffee, tea, or alcohol, you want to have a little bit more than what I just said.
And I think half is a good, again, this is like a starting point,
it's
right?
Easy math.
It's easy math. And like you can go over. It's
Yeah.
better to
definitely
be
go
over than I think using half as kind of like your bottom line. Your bare minimum. You hit half,
Yeah.
you're good.
And I have two friends actually. I won't say their names, so if you listen to this, you know who you are. But
she's judging you.
they don't drink enough water, and they know it. They say that they don't, but the easiest way to make sure you're getting enough is literally buy a bottle that you know how much is in it. So you can get a 40-ounce bottle on Amazon. You can get a 64-ounce bottle on Amazon, and then you know when you fill it that you need to drink it 1 or 2 by the end of the day, depending on what size bottle you get. Because if you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. You shouldn't feel thirsty really ever.
Yeah.
So those are the basic pillar recommendations for hydration that I have. I mean, there's a whole nother layer to hydration. That's a hot topic, and that's what type of water we should drink.
Yeah.
And I'm no scientist or environmentalist, but the topic of water, what water is safe to consume, is harder than it should be. And I have my doctorate. I mean, it's causing a lot of fear for people. Like, is this giving us cancer? Is there
is my tap water safe?
Is tap water safe? So all my recommendation that I have is do your own research and do the best that you can, because trends do change. And then what you thought was safe, you find out later was not safe. And what I can recommend that you do is go on Environmental Working Group's website and search your city's zip code.
Yeah.
And it does give an overview of contaminants detected, and then information on types of filters and what contaminants those filters will take out of that city water.
For sure. I mean, this podcast we're trying to create clarity, and these subjects are very murky and they're like inundated with information to begin with. So we don't want people to feel scared to drink water. That's definitely
We just want them to drink water.
Yes.
That's what today is about.
Yes,
drink water.
Absolutely. And like, could you choose a better option than tap water? Yeah. But no hydration is way worse
than tap water.
Yeah, than tap water. And I mean, it's really easy to get something like a Brita filter, or, I mean, I think they're available.
Most people's fridges have a carbon filter.
There's carbon filters in your fridge water. You can do a deep dive into different kinds of filtration systems, but the main thing that we want to focus on is just getting water in your body. One of the things that I did is I kind of habit stacked mine. So I have a non-negotiable with myself to drink water as soon as I wake up every morning. It is like the first thing I do. I have a giant glass of like 10 to 12 ounces of water. So I'm already ticking off my ounce count before 6 in the morning. So if I'm going to have my coffee, right after I have water or make my coffee, I have my water first. So it's like water, coffee. That's just like how I've stacked it in my life. And now it's kind of bled into, if I even go over to get a coffee, or, you know, I'm out somewhere and I'm grabbing a coffee locally, I'll get a water with it, because I'm always like water, coffee. It's just one or the other. And not only do I do that in the morning, I do it to get the water in, but now obviously caffeine kind of takes away if you have a cup of coffee, you have 180 to 200 milligrams of caffeine. That kind of negates the hydration. So if you kind of can add in a cup of water with your coffee on the side, then you're hitting it even. You know, you've negated that caffeine deprivation of hydration. So I kind of use that. And also another gander in the toilet. Here we go. Looking at your urine, which is something that, you know, again, the body is giving us a signal, right? There's different colors. I mean, you can even get in, like, some people say there should be a little sediment, but basically, if you are well hydrated, your body has a clearish to yellowish tint, and you're kind of doing that, and you're having that multiple times a day. Hannah's getting blinded by the light right now.
You lied to me.
Sorry.
We're good. Well, that's all I really have for hydration. I don't know if there's really anything else to be said. But I mean, we're doing basic overview of the pillars, so half your body weight is really just in ounces is the
half your body weight, and then if you're peeing more than once a day, you should be peeing frequently. And not frequently.
I think a pelvic health therapist told me, and Katie, don't yell at me if I'm wrong, I think you should be aiming to pee around 5 to 6 times a day, not more than that, and not significantly less than that.
Yeah. And you should have, like I said, a more clearish but maybe yellowish tinge to your pee. Your urine should have that color.
Yeah.
If it's totally clear, it usually means you're super well hydrated, but you also might be lacking some salt and hydration. So that's just something to consider. But again, keeping it basic, like we said, half your body weight in ounces of water a day. If you're having caffeine, substitute whatever you're drinking that has caffeine with it, substitute that with also extra hydration.
Yeah, add a little bit.
And then take a look in the toilet once again.
All right, talk to me about sleep.
Oh my goodness, here we go. One of life's greatest mysteries.
I love that you said that. The great mystery of sleep.
It is a great mystery. Can you imagine, like, we slip into this coma and, like, if we were cave ladies, and we were together in our cave, and then all of a sudden you just slipped into this distant, coma, and then I did, and then we both woke up the next morning, and I was like, I was so worried about you. Did you die? What happened? But we have to do this thing. We have to basically go into this odd state for 8 hours where we're incapacitated. We're basically creating a drug that's paralyzing us inside of our head, in order for us to, like, operate, which is wild. So sleep is really, again, we can get super nuancy, but basically there's 3 types of sleep that happen, 3 main types of sleep that happen when we're sleeping. We have light sleep, we have deep sleep, and we have REM sleep. And we want to achieve all 3 stages pretty much every time we sleep. It would be a goal to have at least 90 minutes of deep and REM, and then the rest of your sleep, 90 minutes each of deep and REM, up to 2.5 hours of each. And the rest of your sleep will be quote unquote light sleep. And we need this in order to operate. One of my first influencers ever, Stan Everding, the world's strongest bodybuilder. You can Google him. He's a great influencer. He talks about sleep as far as training with his bodybuilders and any of his clients, really, as so important that if you don't get a good night's sleep and you are going to just screw it, I'm going to go to the gym. He says that you are stepping over a $100 bill in order to pick up a 10. So he sees sleep as a $100 bill, and that it is more important to rest and get a good night's sleep than it is to go back to the gym and kind of beat yourself up again. So in my mind, that kind of blew my mind away of like, wow, like there's been so many times when I've like just pushed through and been like, well, I'm just gonna, grind through it, even though I didn't get that much sleep last night, instead of going home, getting more rest and coming back the next day, feeling better and actually having a better workout and then better recovery because of that.
I mean, I told you a few months ago, go rest. You don't need to work out so hard today.
Yeah, you do. And I
don't
actually
step over that $100 bill.
I appreciate that accountability. I need it sometimes because I can get way back into my competitive mindset of, trying to just like, squeeze everything out of my body. And that's not necessarily the case for progress. And it's definitely not the case for health, wellness, and longevity. I think as a competitive and an elite athlete, you're kind of always going to be riding the lightning of recovery and training and your input and your output there. So, as I kind of got better at my sport, I needed to get better at my recovery, and looking at my sleep and how much sleep I was getting and the quality of that sleep became really important. And a lot of people don't really understand that even though they may be laying in bed for 10 hours or, that those 2, whiskey drinks really help me go to bed, the quality of that sleep isn't necessarily helping you. Yeah. You have to have good quality sleep in order to really kind of get progress from it. And it's just something to consider. I mean, I think we could have maybe put sleep in with stress management, but I think that it's so important and it's not talked enough about how important it is for literally living a longer life that we had to make this its own pillar.
Yeah, I agree. And I have a new hot take on necessary sleep. It's going to vary person to person based on what is going on, physiologically that day. So, for example, if I laid on the couch all day and ate chips and watched TV, I won't need the same amount of sleep as if I had run a marathon or if I got sick and was recovering. I still like having the 7 to 9 hours as a reference range because it does give people some direction to go with, and that's helpful. I
think it also allows your body the opportunity to, like I said, touch into those 2 other types of sleep, not only light, but to touch REM and to touch deep. We can get into this in like a different a different time, but REM sleep is super important it's like basically a car wash for your brain. It's like a lymphatic drainage for your brain. So dreaming is actually really, really good for you and really important. And then also and that happens in REM sleep, and it only happens in REM sleep really. And then in deep sleep, that's when your body really can like physically recover. You can, your body will produce HGH. It's one of the only times that your body actually does. And it helps mitigate any kind of like cortisol high spikes in your body, and that's in deep sleep. So giving yourself time enough to touch all 3 layers or levels of sleep is important. Not just being like, well, I feel like I slept really good and I was in the bed for 4 hours and I have lines on my face. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that you actually got the sleep that's going to help give you real, true longevity and health.
Well, and like one way that you could measure that is people have Whoops and Oura rings, and I don't wear a Whoop anymore, but I did have one for about a year, and it did give some really good insights based on heart rate variability or HRV. And it basically just measures how your body handles stress and recovery. And just an example that was kind of powerful for me that I experienced was I had abdominal surgery 2 years ago, and I'd say like I felt fine, air quotes, after about 5 days post-op. But my Whoop data was telling me that I was not back to normal for 2 weeks post-op. Like 5 days after I felt fine, like I said, my Whoop was saying I had done a full day's work by 12 p.m. by the middle of the day. Yeah. And so what I recommend is taking the data that your tracker gives you and just tune in with how you actually feel in conjunction with that data. Like I stopped using it because I got to the point where I could wake up and I just knew what my body was at, and the data always matched it. So I just got good at really tuning in and feeling like I already know what the Whoop's gonna say. Yeah. So I kind of stopped wearing it. But you should start to notice that you can tune in with yourself and feel what your body needs and is telling you. And that's ultimately why I discontinued wearing a tracker. But I could always tell what was going to happen before.
I think wearing, I actually wore a Whoop. I got my first Whoop in 2017, and I think I paid like $300 and they just sent it to me. Like there was no...
You're an OG user.
Yeah, I'm an OG Whoop user. There was no like subscription or anything. And Whoop is basically another wearable that has a medical grade heart rate monitor on it. It has no screen. Everything is like data that is sent to your phone, and it is a very good tracker of your HRV, of your heart rate, and of giving you like a stress or strain level for the day, and then your actual recovery from that based on your heart rate data. And it does give you insight into the types of sleep that you're getting. And that was a real mind blower for me. And I do think that wearables like that are super useful in giving you basically just like a good gauge on where you're at. I don't think they're Bible. I don't think you need to like marry what your tracker says. And I don't think you need to I wore a tracker. I had basically, this is gross. I had like trench arm basically. So where the light was, and it was on my arm for so long in the same spot, it was making my skin do weird stuff. And I was just like, enough. Like I got my information. Like you said, you start getting in touch with your body and like, okay, I feel this way. I'm getting a signal. Now I'm starting to listen to it. Yeah. And then you start to develop, you start to develop that relationship with your body and all the things that it's kind of showing you and telling you.
So hopefully it's more of something you can wean off of as you start to just learn who you are.
Exactly. I mean, I definitely think it's like a great tool, but again, like for somebody just starting out in health and wellness.
It's not a forever tool.
It's not a forever tool. And I don't think it's a beginner tool. I don't think you need to start with it. You know, I mean, I think as you're within your health and wellness journey, reach out to a coach, reach out to us, and then see if that might be something you want to integrate into your routine. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So ready? It's
last pillar.
Our expert pillar is coming right up. So we touched on these other 4 pillars, and we saved the final
the finest pillar. It's the final and the finest.
The finest pillar of movement for the last one, because this is legitimately our area of expertise. This is what Hannah and I are both professionals at, essentially. So there are a lot of options for movement as a pillar for your health and wellness journey or your longevity journey. And I think it's important to remember that just really kind of getting out of the house is a good way to start. I think the lowest hanging fruit here is to go for a walk. Like, again, you can habit stack, and I stand efforting coaches this, but eat a meal 10-minute walk. 10-minute walks after every meal. All of a sudden now, you have gone from 0 exercise to 10-minute walk after every meal. I've walked 30 minutes total. That's approximately around 1.5 miles, depending on your walking speed. And if you start doing that weeks at a time, you are going to start to have significant step count changes in your life. You're going to be spending time outside in nature, getting vitamin D exposure, getting some sunlight. You're going to aid yourself in digestion with your food. You're actually just going to start enjoying what your body feels like and creating some transformation that'll kind of get you going as far as, like your exercise routine. You know, it's something that you can do right there, right outside of your front door. Just take a step outside.
My favorite way to move is yoga, Pilates, strength training with you on Sundays.
You like to walk? I've seen you walk your cat. I've seen you walk your cat.
I walk little baby Jackie every morning at 6:30. You'll see me. In Palm Beach Gardens. But those are my go-tos when I want to move. Anything that gets your system working is great. What are your basic recommendations? Because I want to hear this from you to everyone out there as far as frequency and type of training each week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the great part about what I get to do and how I coach is that I don't have a, hey, you're going to train 5 times a week and that's going to get you to your goal. I have a very individualized approach, but I would say as kind of a template idea, getting 4 movement days that you're getting sweaty.
Like work.
Yeah, you're getting sweaty. Your heart rate is
4
elevating.
work days.
4 working days. It could be strength and conditioning. It could be a hard yoga class. It could be 1 Orange Theory class or Pilates. It could be a jog on the beach. It could be, if you're very new and you haven't done anything, it could be, that a 20-minute walk where you're actually walking a little bit longer, getting that heart rate up. It could be a weighted walk where you're doing a ruck, basically wearing a weight vest or wearing a backpack with some weight in it. So you're loading your body, heart rate is getting up a little bit. And I would say basically to start with 4 of those. And then you can kind of layer in, some stretching.
Recovery.
You can layer in some recovery. You can...
Mobility.
Yeah. And mobility can be something easy like we're doing right now. This is our floor time.
The Z-sit.
Yeah.
We're both in a Z-sit right now.
So actually I want to talk about that because I think it's important for people to know that, you can kind of build in some movement, that was air quotes movements, but movement by just spending a little bit more time on your floor. Especially if you have a carpet or a rug or mats, if you could just get a little bit of time in your day where you're not necessarily stiff in this chair position that we're stuck in, and kind of move your body a little bit more creatively, a little bit more nurturingly, seeing kind of like what your body needs and is telling you that it needs. Hannah was telling me about having some floor time.
Floor time. Yeah. So, I mean, when's the last time we really, hang out on the floor when you're a working adult? After you've had your kid, after you're a kid, and then you have your kids and you play on the floor with your young kids.
I'm sure all the moms know what tummy time is.
Yeah, exactly. Tummy time. You're probably getting tummy time as an adult when you're on the floor with your newborn baby. But by the time we're in our 30s, 40s, we're working all day. If your kids have grown up, I guess you're in your 50s, 60s. You're not really getting floor time. I mean, if you go to the gym and you do core training and you go to yoga, you can totally count that as floor time. But I think a lot of people need to spend and aim for 20 to 30 minutes on the floor each day, because as we get older, 30 years go by and all of a sudden we're afraid to get down onto the floor because maybe we have pain. We don't have the mobility we used to because we stopped being on the floor. And I'll do these workshops at some gyms and I have chairs set up and then mats because people sit while I just kind of do an overview of the workshop. And then I try to get them on the floor and moving and doing the exercises and mobility work. And there's always, if I have an older group, out of 20 people, anywhere from 3 to 5 people who just would prefer to sit and they don't participate in the floor part because they're genuinely not comfortable or afraid to get on the floor because they don't think they'll be able to get back up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
How did you get here?
We definitely talked about this earlier, not in this podcast, but we have talked about before how movement is this thing that it is kind of, it's not an old wives' tale, but it is, if you are not moving, if you do not use it, you will lose it. Like, if you are not moving in certain ranges or taking your body through certain positions and you are not capable of that,
You will rust. Your joints will
Yep.
become rusty.
Yeah.
Not literally.
But yeah, you will probably start to
Figuratively.
feel like that. And so the frequency of having some movement in your life, that's why I like four working movement days, I think is just going to help keep you accountable. It's going to kind of allow you also time to recover in between them. And I also think that you can use these kind of working movement days as opportunities to kind of dig in and develop that relationship you have with yourself. A lot of people don't realize that working out and training is one of the best and most accessible ways you could start to work on the relationship that you have with you. You know, are you in there, you know, totally negative on yourself? Oh, I can't do this, or I don't want to do that, or are you able to talk yourself through it? Are you able to kind of like reel yourself back in and go, okay, like, I can't do that, but I'm going to do this, and I'm proud of myself for getting it done. Like that internal dialogue and that voice, I think, at least for me, when I started training, that internal dialogue was so loud, especially when I couldn't do something or I felt ashamed about doing something. And I kind of looked at it in a bad light then. I was more frustrated. But now I look at those situations and I look at training as, wow, like this is such a good opportunity to work on being nicer to myself, to work on, you know, really being a healthier version of me. And it kind of can start with being, you know, mindful of what I'm saying to myself during my training days, you know, during the days that I'm in my gym. So
We were also talking about jumping and sprinting.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
literal running sprinting, but just like cardio sprinting.
yeah, I think
Tell everyone about that.
I think that, you know, sprinting is not something I would give somebody who is like, hey, I haven't worked out in 3 years and I want to, you know, start working out. I wouldn't be like, all right, we're going to hit a 100-meter sprint today. That is not what I'm saying. But I do think as far as incorporating some kind of sprints into your fitness routine or your training routine, it is going to be paramount. And then also including jumping into that routine is vitally important. Both of those things for longevity. Sprinting, it's been shown and studied recently that I think 85% of people over 85% of people over 35 do not sprint. Like they stop sprinting in their late 30s and they just never sprint ever again. I was like, wow, that's so sad.
They sprint in their car to work.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more exhilarating than sprinting. And you can sprint. I don't mean, obviously, running. You can do that, but I don't just mean that. You can sprint on a bike. You can sprint on a rower. You can sprint on a ski erg. You can sprint in various different ways. You don't have to just use, oh, I'm going to run. You can kind of use something that might be more, you can sprint on a incumbent bike, right? Like where you're sitting down.
Recumbent bike.
Recumbent. I was like, incumbent? What is this word?
Recumbent bike.
Yes. You can sprint on something like that. So I think touching where your heart rate is really getting elevated is super important, and not necessarily doing that for a long period of time, but at least being able to do that, you know, being able to sprint for 10 seconds or less is really important. Jump and jump training is super, super important, and same thing with weightlifting, especially as we age, females and males. Especially females, strength training and adding in that jump training. So being able to kind of cause some stress on
Ground
joints.
reaction
Yep,
force.
ground reaction. And then that'll help kind of like stave off any onset of osteoporosis. And it's a good way to actually just like work on coordination too. Like what is actually firing, what is getting our glutes working, what are our knees doing, the alignment there. And then obviously strength training is kind of queen and king as you move into, you know, training for longevity. So not just doing cardio, but having designated strength days that you're actually lifting heavy and resting from. So, you know, heavy being like you have to make a face to finish out your set, not just taking 10-pound weights and doing 18 reps, but you're progressing through. You're taking 10-pound weights, you're doing 15 reps, and you're taking, you know, 15-pound weights, and you're doing 9 reps, and you're taking 20-pound weights.
Power.
Yeah.
Progressing to more power sets even.
Yeah. And I think, you know, also to a point to where you're actually creating some strain, right? You shouldn't be smiling all the time.
Yeah.
You might be smiling, like showing your teeth, but you're doing it in like a grimacing kind of way when you're incorporating like true strength training into your fitness routine. But again, like this isn't necessarily where a beginner needs to start, but this is kind of the pattern you need to follow in order to train for overall longevity.
You need to challenge your system or else it's not going to change.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to improve.
And this is where we go back to stress. Like we need to figure a stressor out in order to create an adaptation, right? An adaptation from the body. So if I'm not getting a stress signal from the weight I'm lifting, then I need to kind of like reroute what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, you don't need to be doing this every single day. Again, if you're training like this 4 days a week, and I would say if you are over 40, you should probably weight train at least twice. At least 2 of those days should be designated strength training.
Yeah. Well, I think we made it through our pillars of health. And we covered a broad topic list that can certainly go much, much deeper. But our goal was to give you guys, our listeners, an entry point for how to incorporate each pillar into your everyday lives. And I like that we covered this as our first real topic. And we will certainly dive much deeper into each pillar with local experts in future episodes.
Definitely. I know Hannah and I have like a depth of knowledge, but there's so many good instructors and coaches in the area, and I can't wait to have them on and really deep dive and talk about all of these 5 pillars. Hopefully this gave a little bit of clarity as far as where do I start and what do I need to do to be healthy. Like these are kind of like the starting point, right? If like we were paramedics showing up at a 911 emergency, we would be going, this is where we start.
And it would be sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep if we were to pick the one out of the 5.
Yes, if we were to have to pick one.
Sleep.
Yeah. If it was like, all right, what is the thing that I can do? If I had to change one thing in my life, what would it be?
Optimize your sleep.
Yeah, it would be optimize your sleep. It has such a huge impact on your overall well-being that if you can try to maximize your sleep, it will definitely have an overall effect on your life for sure.
And we actually did a good job with time because it's 59 minutes in.
Wow.
I want to give a TLDR, too long, didn't read statement of our episode today. So the first one is just eat a whole foods-based diet. So if you're a beginner, look into Whole30, Paleo, Mediterranean, and minimize processed food intake to start. Number 2, drink half of your body weight in ounces of water each day.
Yeah.
Number 3, manage your stress. Watch some clouds. Work out.
Doctor's orders. Watch some clouds.
Spend some time with your friends and family. Number 4, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep based on your daily activity needs. And number 5, intentionally engage in movement 4 times a week. Add in some mobility, flexibility training. Do your 20 to 30 minutes a day of floor time. And we can mix some stuff into our day. Flexibility and strength training, you can do them on different days, same day.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
Don't be married to a specific formula either, because as we age and our bodies change, our formula that may have worked for health and wellness when we were 20 might not work for what we need when we are 62.
Yep.
So, always be learning and experiencing and kind of tuning in, using your training and using kind of your whole life as a way to tune in and pay attention to all the signals that the body is giving us. I did a Instagram post about this, but I had a yoga teacher say, gosh, she changed my life with this one sentence. But she said that, our body is our guide on this earth.
Was it Shelby?
No, I wish it was. Shout out to Shelby at Shelby Yoga. But this was at a yoga studio I was visiting in Houston, and the instructor, she was great, and she said our bodies are our guides. We just have to quiet the mind enough to hear them. And I was like, whoa, that is so true. And then even when we're going through this whole list of, the 5 pillars of health, they're all signaled and indicated by what is going on in our body. So definitely find a way to try to tune in to all the things that the body is telling you.
What you need that day might change.
And not from a point of shame, but from a point of evolution. Like all your body is wanting to do is be healthy and live on this planet in its best form. So listen to it so you can take it there.
Should we wrap this up?
Let's wrap it up. All right, guys, thank you for listening to Beyond the Reps,
What your physical therapist and personal trainer forgot to tell you.